The third day of national rail strikes called by the RMT over pay and conditions. And workers from other unions are out in solidarity.
The RMT say that this isn't just about the railways, it is about working people everywhere. And they feel that at the moment they have got public support. And just look, they say, at all the other trades unions who have turned out today to support them. We all know that the people that are most impacted by a train strike are oftentimes the same demographic as your members. Yeah. And that's going to create a big tension for you, isn't it?
Yeah, we get that. But those same people are some of the people here. They're some of the low-paid workers who have to travel in and did travel in all through COVID using public transport. Our fight is their fight, and we will stand shoulder to shoulder with every organisation and union that wants to get them all a pay rise.
What if they say your fight is no longer their fight because you don't stand for them?
That's not what they're saying. On the trains this week, our train managers and catering workers were told by the public and the travelling public that we're supported. The opinion polls are showing it.
From workers to the weekend, revellers made their way to the Rolling Stones concert in Hyde Park using any means necessary.
Local bus, and another local bus. So 4 hours, yeah, from Gatwick.
I came from Aberdeen actually to London by train, but it worked actually. So because I came on Friday and Friday was the day off.
Hoping for an Uber, but
I'm 39 years old. Do I look like someone that can wait till 5 a.m. for a coach home? Don't.
And sympathy depends who you ask.
I don't sympathise with them because I think it is chasing inflation.
I think everyone in the public sector is being shafted, basically. You know, they need the money.
Network Rail says 20% of trains did run today and that many main lines remained at least partially open. But much of the UK had no service at all, which meant, for example, if you wanted to get to the beach today, you needed a car. Many seaside towns, including Blackpool, Skegness, Margate, Bournemouth and Llandudno, had no trains. The same for the whole of Cornwall. Not a single working train. In Scotland, the RMT were in voice outside Glasgow's famous Central Station, with a warning their strike isn't just about pay.
For example, Network Rail are talking about cutting in half the maintenance that they do on the railway. That is a real dangerous move in our view, and I think the public need to be made aware of that, because if the rail infrastructure isn't maintained properly, trains come off the track, go down embankments and kill people.
The union hasn't ruled out further strikes and wants the government to intervene. The government wants them to resolve things directly with Network Rail and the train operating companies, repeating that even in rush hour, post-pandemic traveller numbers are low, and with reduced revenue, what they want to see is reform.
Well, with me now is Scottish Labour leader Anas Sarwar. Mr Sarwar, Sir Keir Starmer's office this week told Labour frontbenchers not to go along to the picket lines. You went anyway. What was he thinking?
Look, I lead the Scottish Labour Party, and I think it's important to give solidarity to striking workers on picket lines here in Scotland. And I think it's important to recognise that this is a crisis entirely of the UK government's making. The workers don't want to strike. The unions don't want to strike, the publics don't want a strike, but all of them demand better of this government. And I think, as was said in your piece before, Grant Shapps needs to stop playing the political games, stop trying to create a culture war here, get round the table, get a deal, and get our systems back started.
You're talking about political games. The leader of the Labour Party is asking his own frontbenchers not to attend pickets. And the consequence is that, according to a recent poll, 43% of people don't know what Labour's position is on the strike. So can you help us out? Is the Labour Party, led by Keir Starmer at a UK level, in favour of these strikes or not? Simple question.
Well, look, I lead the Scottish Labour Party, and
do you not know what the answer is?
Look, we don't. Nobody on the country wants strikes.
I know nobody wants the strikes. But just help me out with this very, very simple question: is the UK Labour Party in favour of these rail strikes?
Well, look, the UK Labour Party is in favour of a fair pay deal for these workers, recognising that these are very workers that we went out on a Thursday night, we applauded for, we recognised them as frontline workers during a pandemic, and we all made a promise then that we wouldn't just applaud them in a token gesture, but coming through the pandemic, we would recognise them and reward them too. Layer on top of that a cost of living crisis, where inflation is heading towards 11%. That means a real terms pay cut for people across the country. And that means struggling to make people be able to feed their kids. So we should be supporting those workers and demanding a fair pay deal.
Should the workers then get the 7% they're asking for?
Well, look, I think there has to be negotiation. I think there has to be a fair deal and fair settlement between the unions.
This is another simple question, really, isn't it? If you're standing alongside them on the picket, do you think they should get what they're asking for?
If you let me answer, Kieran, I think it's a perfectly reasonable position to say, particularly for those workers on a lower level of pay, that they should be getting a much higher increase in pay compared to perhaps those that are on the higher end of the pay scale, perhaps in the £120,000, £150,000 plus mark. So I think people would recognise the need to have a fair pay settlement that doesn't mean a real terms pay cut for some of the lowest paid workers. Let's not forget that some of the workers who kept us going through that pandemic were some of the poorest paid workers in our country.
Obviously, there are other industries threatening to strike, teachers, nurses, police officers. Would you stand by them as well? Would you think that everyone in the public sector deserves more than the government's offering?
Well, look, I will absolutely stand by workers, and what I will not do is allow this government to pit worker against worker in order to try and squeeze down wages and suppress people's wages. We should be supporting these workers. We should be demanding the government gets round and does a fair pay deal so we can get people, first of all, confronting the cost of living crisis and then rewarding them because they were underpaid before this crisis as well.
Just briefly
rewarding
then,
them and then rebuilding these public services.
If everyone's to get a pay rise under Labour, where's the money coming from?
Well, look, you've seen through that crisis the exponential amount of money that was spent in terms of getting us through that crisis, in terms of the furlough scheme being a good example of that. And right now we have a major cost of living crisis. People can't afford to put the heating on. There are mums skipping meals in order to feed their children. Surely in that circumstance, people deserve a fair pay deal and a government focused on that crisis, not trying to fight a culture war.
Thanks, Hannah Sauer. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Leave it.